Welcome to our scary movie countdown. We're going to share our top 15 scary movies that we recommend for 2024 Halloween.
That's not
These
confusing.
are, we all have a list of 5 here, and
There you go.
there's going to be a good mix. So I'm going to start, and I've always found horror movies kind of interesting, especially from like a spiritual perspective, because that's the genre that likes to dabble in that sort of thing and bring in spiritual themes. Number 5 on my list, though, is kind of a funny one, obscure. It's a 1959 movie, House on Haunted Hill, starring Vincent Price. So it's an old black and white film. This movie has been remade, but at a Halloween party a couple years ago, and I showed this movie.
I don't know why that just showed up.
We're not doing that movie, Drew.
Interesting.
Catch up.
Yeah, that's not a scary movie.
I turned it off. I was like, no, I got to turn my screen off.
Have you guys ever seen House
Here we
on
go.
Haunted Hill, the old one?
Yes.
It's very B movie. It is like hilarious. So it's got atmosphere, but it's also something that you can laugh at. Like, my wife doesn't like scary movies, but I got her to watch this. And basically, Vincent Price's character just invites a bunch of people to a mansion to see, who will survive. There's a haunting here. Who will survive staying the night in this haunted place? And there are some twists and turns, but if you're looking for something that's kind of light scary, that's a pretty good one, I think.
Have you seen the remake of it, starring
Yes.
Chris Ann and other people?
Like around
just remember-
2000 or something like that.
Yeah. It was a
Yeah.
really good movie until it wasn't.
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah, I
first
remember watching that and being like,
two-thirds were
"Oh."
good, and then it was like they ran out of money, so everyone's like, "Let's just make a big cloud that kills everyone." The end.
Yeah, I remember the
Or a couple of them
special
left.
effects being pretty scary bad.
They weren't too bad in the remake. It was literally because they had like that doctor that would shake a lot. Excuse me, Nick or Drew's the sick one. I'm not sure why I'm coughing.
There's no way I passed that on to you through the microphone.
Probably not. But yeah, the remake was it was strong. It was good. It had some decent known actors in it and everything like that. But yeah, it got to like the last 20 minutes, 25 minutes of the movie. It was literally like they showed up to film one day and they're like, we ran out of money.
Yeah.
What can
That
you make
happens
with
to a lot
20
of scary
bucks? And
movies.
guys like, I can make a cloud, kill everyone. All right, let's do that. And
Oh,
that's how the
great.
movie ended.
For
It was
20
just like,
bucks.
Yeah,
really?
I've heard
That's
Mike
what it is?
Flanagan's remake, a Netflix series, The Haunting, and I believe there's another series. It's really good. So I'm looking forward to watching that sometime. But
Right.
Drew, what is your
Oh.
number 5 scary
Oh,
movie on your list?
Okay. Well, real quick, you just mentioned The Haunting, and it reminded me of something. I happened to be in Los Angeles in 1999 visiting a friend who was taking film school classes over the summer at USC. Grady, yep. And we went downtown into West Hollywood, and we were going to just hanging around, and they happened to have the world premiere of The Haunting was showing up at the Fox Theater that night.
Oh,
So we
the Catherine
stood outside
Zeta-Jones one?
Yes, so we stood outside.
Same one I was talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, and we stood outside and we waited, and then we saw Catherine Zeta-Jones come out, and we saw Liam Neeson come out. And once they all got in their limos and they all took off, everybody kind of went up to the theater, and people were grabbing souvenirs like, the movie posters and stuff like that. And at one, I'm standing up there, and this guy walks by me and bumps my shoulder, boom, like that. And he turned around and he said, "Oh, dude, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that's cool. That's cool." And then I had to stop and look, and I turned around and looked back at him, and it was Jason Briggs from American Pie had walked
Oh, yeah.
into my shoulder. And I didn't know his name at the time. And I'm like, "Oh, hey, it's that guy from that American Pie movie."
Yeah.
Was he in The Haunting too?
No, but he was
Oh.
there.
Yeah.
Movie premiere.
So I thought that was kind of fun. So it was like my first Hollywood premiere. But okay, so I'm gonna go with my number 5. And this, again, I'm not putting these in any particular order. I really didn't. I couldn't really figure out how to put these in order. I know which one's my favorite, so I will leave that one for later. The first one is probably one that you guys have never seen, and I may have never even heard of, because it was a made-for-TV movie in 1981. It was going to be a feature film, but they put it on TV instead, and it's called Dark Knight of the Scarecrow.
Interesting.
Never heard of this one.
Oh, I just watched it with my daughter yesterday again, because it's like I said, it's one of those where when a kill happens, it's more of it's implied what's going on instead of showing it. But it was really well done. It's a small town, and there's a 36-year-old mentally handicapped man who gets bullied, and he hangs out with a little girl who's probably around 11 or 12 years old, because that's what his mentality is. And she ends up getting attacked by a dog, and he carries her home to her mom, and she's holding this little girl at the doorstep and handing it to her mom, saying, "I didn't do it." And there's 4 guys in town that are always picking on him. So they think that he killed this little girl, that he attacked this girl, and they go out and they basically hunt him down, and they dress him up as a scarecrow to hide him, but they find him and they shoot him, they execute him, and the men are acquitted. But then as time goes on, one by one, each man starts seeing a scarecrow in their cornfield or appearing to them, and then they meet their demise. And it turns out that the ghost of the guy, or it's just creepy because it's a scarecrow walking, that you never see. But for 1981, and it's a made-for-TV movie. I think it holds up, and I think it's got its very, very creepy, eerie moments. And I remember watching it as a kid, so I think it's probably also that when you see it as a kid and it's kind of scary. It kind of, it's one of those that I told my daughter it's like a guilty pleasure of mine to watch this one, because I remember seeing it as a child. But if you've never seen it, I do recommend checking it out. You can find it on Amazon Prime right now. You can rent it for $1.99, or you can buy it for $5 like I did. And it's a really interesting film. I think so. That's
got Dr. Giggles in it.
Dr. Giggles.
Dr. Giggles.
He plays the mentally challenged guy.
Oh yeah. I couldn't remember what his name was.
I got it right here. That is Larry Drake.
Larry, yes. And then you'll notice
I was going to say known for Dr. Giggles, Darkman, LA Law, and playing Yahoo #1 in The Karate Kid.
Oh,
I don't know which.
I don't know what Yahoo #1.
I don't remember Yahoo in Karate Kid, but
yeah. And there's a few other names that you would. Lane Smith is in it. He's a character actor. He was the father and son-in-law. He was.
Oh, okay. I've seen that. Yeah.
In Bad News
Charles
Bears.
Burning's pretty. Yeah.
Yeah, and then
that dude. Yeah, Lane Smith. Okay.
Yeah, and then the guy who plays Otis, Charles Durning, he's another character actor. He was in the Muppet movie. He was in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Dick Tracy, Tootsie. So it's got a decent cast, and I recommend everyone check it out.
Check that out. I've never seen that.
Yeah, good one.
Very cool. I'll look that up.
Cool.
So Doug, it's up to you now to give us number.
So I have some
5.
scary ones, and then I have some strange ones. This would be considered more of a strange one. When this movie first came out, it was known as Brain Dead. Came out in the early 90s, 1992, directed by a nobody director named Peter Jackson.
Whoa, really?
And they released it in the United States and called it Dead Alive. And
I've heard of this.
Is basically a comedy zombie movie with an insane amount of gore. And we talked about not doing spoilers, but I'm going to do spoilers. Basically, the last big scene of the movie is the main character strapping a lawnmower to himself. He picks up the lawnmower and then walks through about 200 zombies. And
Oh,
it's
just like on the game Dead Rising.
oh yeah, and it's basically 30 seconds of limbs flying everywhere and stuff like that. But I don't watch it for the gore. I watch it for the hilarity of how stupid the main character is, and he has a crush on this girl, but his mom is overbearing. I mean, there's literally a scene where they're in a Catholic cemetery and zombies are attacking them, and then a priest comes out and he's like, what's going on here? And this takes place, they're in New Zealand. They shot this in New Zealand. All the actors you wouldn't recognize any of the actors. They're all from New Zealand. But yeah, he comes out and he's like, what's going on out here? And a zombie attacks him, and the Catholic priest does like a roundhouse kick and just destroys the zombie. And I'm not sure how much we're allowed to say here, but basically he's like, I kick butt for the Lord. But he didn't say
I have
butt.
seen that movie.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. All right.
And there's, basically the end of it, his mom turns into this huge zombie and tries to put him back into her womb, but he's got a chainsaw or a lawnmower, I can't remember, one of the two, and cuts out of her. And it's just complete over the top insanity, chaos, hilarity. If you're not into gory movies, definitely don't watch it. And I'm not much of a gory movie type guy, but this was it was basically a parody of itself. It was a parody of zombie films, and it's fun, it's funny, it's a quick movie, and some decent one-liners that'll make you chuckle, but a lot of gore. And not just gore, just a lot of, like, his mom is the first one that gets bit, and she's getting sick, and it's just, there's like a 2 or 3 minute scene with her puking and snotting up a bunch of stuff. And, he shows everything. He's trying to show people what he can do, Peter Jackson, with special effects and stuff like that. And it was this movie along with The Frighteners, which is an underrated horror movie that probably
I was wondering if you were going to go with that one at some point.
I thought about it, but
I was thinking of that one too.
This one's more fun. But yeah, Dead Alive and Frighteners are what I'm hurt. And he does another one with Kate Winslet. I can't remember this. Heavenly Creatures. Those 3 movies are what people saw, and they're like, okay, we're going to give him Lord of the Rings. So
Peter Jackson did The Frighteners?
Yeah.
See, I didn't know that though. I was just thinking about that movie yesterday. I didn't realize that was Peter Jackson.
Mm-hmm. Peter Jackson directed that.
We'll have to talk about that one later.
Yeah.
Just as an honorable mention, because it's a pretty decent film.
But yeah, that's my number 5, I think.
All right. Very good. The next one on my list, we actually saw one of the sequels this year. It involves a gas mask and traveling to the further. It is Insidious, the first one. So I thought this was a pretty cool movie.
We saw that last year.
Yeah. We saw Insidious 4 or 5.
I don't know how many there are.
Part 5. Yeah, part 5. It was part 5.
Part last.
So, yeah, I liked this movie because it starts out like a creepy atmospheric ghost movie, and it has tons of atmosphere. I'm not going to spoil it, but basically, I mean, it explores the idea that there is this other spiritual dimension, like a ghostly plane that you can travel to that's part of the afterlife. And they bring in the idea of demons who basically like break a person's mind down over a period of time by haunting them or appearing to them, trying to possess them. So there's tons of spiritual ideas all molded together into this ghost film. And the second half, like a lot of people were kind of thrown for a loop when you actually get to see some of the beings. But I don't know. I thought it was really interesting. So I think it is worth a watch. So back to you, Drew. What do you think? What's your next one?
My next one is it's a classic. 1960.
Hmm.
60,
Did you say
61?
16? Oh, 61.
19, yeah. It's
Can't remember it.
no, I got it right here. I'm just trying to find the date. Psycho.
Yeah.
Alfred Hitchcock Psycho.
Hitchcock.
I can't remember if it was 60 or 61. That's another one of my my favorite. I don't necessarily know if it's a horror movie. It could be.
Suspense, maybe.
It's more of a suspense thriller, whatever, but 1960. But the way it's shot, the way it's done, I remember I saw it for the first time in college, and I saw it on a big screen in a theater. There's a theater on campus that was showing old movies, and they had Psycho up, and I had actually never seen the original one. So I went in to watch it for the first time, and I thought, man, this is like really keeps your attention. I thought it was really interesting. It's the dynamic of Norman Bates, of how he's, you know, on the surface, he seems like just a normal guy who is taking care of his mother. And he's got this overbearing mom. It's just like in his business every, you know, no matter what he does, who's he talking to, where's he at, what's he doing? And then you find out at the end that it's old enough movie now where I'm not spoiling anything, right? Spoilers go out on this one.
I think 40, 50, 64 years is good enough. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
if you
then
haven't
you
seen
find
it, just skip ahead a little bit.
yeah. So you find out that, you know, Norma Bates is
Rosebud's the
actually
sled.
you find out that Norma Bates is actually deceased, and Norman,
No, his mom.
Norma,
Oh, you said Norma. My bad. Okay.
yeah, Norma Bates is deceased, and Norman has basically just been carrying on like she's alive, you know, speaking in her voice and dressing up as her, and he even moves her corpse from the bed to the window to the, you know, and has conversations with her, and that's just how he dealt with it. And when Marion Crane came into the picture, the mother's side of Norman got jealous and killed her in the shower, the famous shower scene. So it's not Norman doing the killing, it's his mother doing the killing, but it's that side of it. It was just really it's just really messed up. But the way it was shot, and it stands the test of time. It's a great film. And they end up doing a remake with Vince Vaughn. They did a shot for shot remake, and it didn't have the same feeling to it, even though it was
I
the
watched
exact
it
same
too.
movie. It just wasn't the same. And I think with it being in black and white adds a lot to it. And I think at the time you had never really seen anything like that. You know, I'm trying to picture what it'd been like in 1960 to see it. You know, a murder scene in the shower with the blood going down the drain, and just what a nut the guy was. They ended up making some sequels. The sequels weren't really that good. However, the show Bates Motel is actually very well done. So if you like the movie Psycho, you should check out Bates Motel.
I feel like this is something they could have toyed with on The Big Bang Theory between Howard and his mother, if you've ever seen that. Like, I would love to see a parody. If they didn't do it, I haven't seen every episode, but they could totally do something and play with that, because they almost have the type of relationship you could see going the Psycho direction.
Same dynamic, yeah.
No, the first time I saw Psycho, and it almost made my list, but the first half of the movie, I was like, all right, it's fine or whatever. But all I remember, or I remember the whole movie, but I remember that the one scene where the cop gets killed
down the stairs,
that got me, because I was so used to, and I think I saw this in high school. So we're talking early 90s. But, you know, you're used to, you know, when somebody jumps out, the music hits, or, you know, something's about to happen. The person's walking, so you're getting ready or whatever. This one, he's just kind of walking up the stairs, and then randomly, just off screen comes walking on screen and stabs him. And
Yeah.
it's just like, what was that?
It comes-
It's there wasn't music, there wasn't anything big. It was just like, I'm walking up the stairs. Oh, got a knife in me.
Yeah, you just see a lady in her nightgown come briskly walking out of that room real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Just walks right around the corner with the knife, and it's like a above shot. So you see him coming up the stairs, and real quick, it's almost like The Exorcist 3 hallway scene,
Yeah.
just out of nowhere.
But even
Yeah,
with
that's
that
what I
one,
thought
they
of.
hit those horns, when they hit those horns,
Yeah.
when that guy comes out, this was nothing. It was
Nothing.
literally just a little bit of light music in the background. All of a sudden, she comes walking out, and
Yeah,
it was just like, it's probably one of the scarier moments that I've seen in movies. It's
Yeah.
just like you were not expecting that, and that one scene made the entire movie great for me.
Mhm.
The rest of the movie was great. It was fine, but yeah, that one scene.
That was
Good choice.
it was creepy. Thank you, Doug. What you got
All right,
next?
I guess I'm up, huh? All right, so we kind of talked about. Well, I'll get into it, but everyone's always saying the first movie's the best. The first movie's the best. I went for a part 3 mainly because they saw early in the slasher genre that things were getting over the top with this. Everyone's making a horror movie in the early 80s. Everyone's doing this. So what do we do to make something different? Let's just have fun with it. We'll make fun of ourselves. We'll do weird things. It doesn't need to be the same movie. We talked about this when we did Jason X. The first 9 movies minus, a couple weird things here and there. It's all dude walking around, hockey mask, killing people. Not Nightmare on Elm Street. Part 1 was, kind of a creep movie. He attacks you in his dreams, and he's this creepy dude. The second one, he comes out of the dreams. He actually possesses a guy, and, he becomes Freddy. And they're like, okay, part 3. Everyone's making horror movies. What do? Let's do something crazy. Let's make a bunch of superheroes. And that's what I love about this. The Dream Warriors, yes, came out in 1987. And it's basically about this group of mentally ill high school students. They're in kind of a home for mentally ill people. And Heather Langenkamp, who played Nancy Thompson in the first one, comes back, and she's the therapist for all these students. And she teaches them how to use their strengths in the dreams, which makes the dream sequences awesome. Because, there's this one little kind of goofy looking kid, and he's the nerd or whatever. But when he's in his dreams, he's this powerful wizard. And, Patricia Arquette's in it too. This is one of her first movies. And, she's just, real good. She's very athletic. So she's very, good with gymnastics and flipping and all this stuff. Another guy has guns. Another girl kind of turns into this punk rocker. They all have different powers, which made the movie more interesting. It wasn't just about Freddy. It wasn't about a guy who haunts you in your dreams. It's about the characters now. There were multiple people who had multiple strengths. And, there's one guy who wouldn't talk in real life, but when he was in his dream, he found his voice, and that voice made him powerful. That was cool. And so it wasn't your typical slasher movie. It was doing something different with the horror genre. And this is when Freddy started his one-liners too. In the first couple, he had some, speaking roles and everything, but he was just the evil guy. By part 3, he was making funny comments. He was making jokes as he was killing the kids, which is a little bit more sadistic, I guess, but still, it's fun. So
it has a great theme song. And the theme song, Dream Warriors by Dokken.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I didn't know Dokken did that. I remember I was trying to think of something popular, but yeah, it was just, Lawrence Fishburne was in it too. I forgot about that. One of his earlier roles. Yeah, he was the janitor, I believe.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Mm-hmm. But, I love, even when they start getting into the deeper nightmares, they get pretty cheesy, but I have fun with them still. And I love them all, but part 3 is the best by far, in my opinion.
I haven't seen that one in a while.
It's fun.
I need to go back and watch that one.
Well,
Well,
my
Nathan.
number 3
3.
is right behind me.
The Ring.
The Ring.
That
I remember
movie
being
creeped
16
me
when
out.
this movie came out, and I went on a date to this movie. Man, I could not sleep that night. This movie freaked me out when I saw it. Have you guys both seen The Ring?
Yes.
Yep.
I've seen these. I've seen the actual Japanese movies they were based on, Ringu. And I've noticed that a lot of Japanese films try to address this human longing for justice in the world. We have this frustration when something terrible happens and like we can't do anything to make it right. So in Japanese horror, I've noticed they try to address that by showing like, hey, some supernatural force is going to get justice where we didn't see it in real life, but it's a ghost. Now, the thing about the Japanese horror movies that I've noticed, though, that do this, yeah, the ghosts are pursuing justice, but they actually punish anyone who comes in contact with them. So it's funny. They're supposed to make up for this longing we have for justice, but they end up killing a bunch of other people too. So it's kind of funny. But yeah, this was a terrifying movie to me, and I would never go down in a well because of it. The tape that they play in the film, I mean, that is probably the most disturbing part. I mean, it's
They
creepy
did some
seeing
research on that.
Samara. Yeah, Samara with the hair over her face. Well, that was pretty scary, and that was disturbing. But that tape, man, when you see her come out of the well in the tape, I was actually going to put a background up of Samara like standing off to the side of me, but I thought if I have to talk on this podcast and she's like looking over my shoulder for an hour or however long we go, I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight. So yeah.
That movie was weird when she crawled out of that TV. Right?
Yeah,
That
was
yeah.
Well, the people she killed, that kind of bugged me a little bit because when they found them, their faces were like it was like they had a severe stroke and their jaw was over here. And that was a little bit creepy too.
Yeah. And I'll say that the sequel, The Ring 2, has some really scary moments, but overall it's depressing and slow. So it was a disappointment, but if you could just isolate a few of the scares, the second one's pretty scary. They did remake The Ring a few years ago, but it got such bad reviews that I didn't watch it. And I might watch it.
They remade The Ring?
Yeah, and they called it.
They remade the remake. All within what, 10 years? I mean, that movie came out in the 2000s, so maybe 20 years ago, but
they remade The Grudge too. And neither reboot did well, and it's just like,
I can't make that noise.
The original, it was so good with atmosphere. I mean, nobody's beat it since. All right, it is Drew. You are up next.
Well, I'm making a change to my list here because I had one on here, and the more I thought about it, the more it's not really a horror movie, but I think it's good for around Halloween, but it's not a horror movie. So I'm going to put that. I'll talk about that later in our honorable mention.
It's like I want to know which that is.
Huh? The one I was going. No, it's not. It was The Burbs.
Oh, I love that movie.
But
yeah,
I just
that would count.
Okay, we'll go ahead and count it. Okay, we'll keep The Burbs on there then.
All right.
Yeah. Have you, Nathan? Have you seen that?
I own that movie.
Okay, yeah. I just watched that again today. That movie is amazing, and I think it's so underrated. Nobody ever talks about it.
It's the funniest Tom Hanks has ever been.
I think so. It's my favorite Tom Hanks movie.
He's been in some great movies, but this is the funniest Tom Hanks you'll ever see.
Absolutely. I think it's underappreciated. No one ever talks about it. And what I really like about this movie is that it only takes place on that one little cul-de-sac. Like they don't go anywhere else. You don't. It's hard to find a movie anywhere that takes place in this one location like that,
Right.
where it's just front yards and a street. Occasionally you go into someone's house. But it's hilarious because I live on a cul-de-sac and there's times where you'll sit there and you'll see a car pull in and you gotta look out the window and you're like, okay, who are these people? And what are they doing? And I get new neighbors and it's like you got to look through the window to see what your new neighbors are doing and what do they look like before you actually go introduce yourself to them. It's so you can kind of relate to all that stuff. Now, fortunately, I don't have a creepy house next to me with guys who are driving their garbage out to the street and beating it with a stick. I don't have that, but it's absolutely hilarious. The cast in this one is phenomenal. Like every character is so perfect.
Oh yeah,
in this
casted
movie.
perfectly.
Oh
And
my
a good
gosh.
cast too. I mean, all of them are known.
Yeah, Bruce
Really
Dern. He's a good character actor, and he plays Mark, who lives across the street, a military guy. He's got one line that absolutely cracks me up because my daughter said that hey, Dad, that's like you. He's mad because the old man down at the end of the cul-de-sac has the nicest yard because he trains his dog to crap in my yard. that's me. I
You
get
train your
mad.
dog to crap in other people's yards?
No, I get mad when other people let their dogs crap in my yard. Yeah, it's such an underrated and underappreciated movie. It's so funny. So funny.
Absolutely.
So that was that's my number 3.
One of the few Carrie Fisher movies that I can name that doesn't have the word Star Wars in it.
I can maybe name one more.
Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
I was going with Harry Met Sally.
Oh, good one. All right. Anything else anyone want to say about the Burbs? I don't want to. We're good. We're good.
We're moving on.
All right. So part 3, I Get Greedy. Part 3, number 3, my third favorite horror movie. I Get Greedy. I don't want one monster. I want them all. And that's what brings us to Cabin in the Woods.
Great
This movie. Oh, wow. All of my monitors just shut off, but I can still hear you guys. Oh,
okay.
one of them came back on. I don't know what's going on. I did a new setup and could be. I don't even know where you guys went. I lost you.
Well, we can see
you.
All right. Well, I'll trust you that you're there. Anyway, Cabin in the Woods, movie that came out in 2011, but fairly certain it was shot like in the early 2000s. This movie sat on a shelf for a while because it has a young Chris Hemsworth in it, pre-Thor, but this movie came out after Thor, I do believe, or right around the same time. And so, yeah, you got Chris Hemsworth in it and a few other people. And it's basically about these college kids, a group of 5 of them. They go to their Chris Hemsworth's cousin's cabin out in the middle of the woods. Well, it's such an interesting story. I don't want to go too deep into it, but there are people who manipulate what these 5 students kind of react to, or what they what visits them and everything like that. So when you're dealing with everyone up top, they're in the cabin in the woods. Things get scary. You got zombies attacking, people are dying. They're like, what do we do? But at the same time, you got people who are basically underground and they're controlling everything, trying to create this horror atmosphere for these kids. And I'm not going to go, like I said, I'm not going to go too deep into it. I'm going to let you watch it to figure out why they're doing this and what happens at the end. But I did give you kind of a little bit of a spoiler. You do get to see a lot of bad creatures, evil creatures, strange creatures. Everyone gets a nice little cameo in this one. So again, kind of a strange horror movie, but still had some fun with it. So definitely worth the watch, in my opinion.
Yeah. The what was it? The Walrus Man? The guy's always
that was the creature from the Black Lagoon. Or
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if they called him that. They didn't call him creature from. I think they called him a sea creature or something like that. It's
Something
a little
like
bit.
that.
Different. But
What's
yeah,
funny is they have that whole board that they're like trying to guess which monster is going to be the one to come out and attack them, and they got like 100 different ones. And you're watching it. Excuse me. If you're watching it at home, you can pause and start reading all the different names that they have of all these possible monsters that can show up. Not one guy is dying to see this one monster. He finally does get to see it, but it was a very clever movie because it was not what I like going into watching it. I honestly, I didn't know anything about it. And then as the story starts developing and you realize that there's people manipulating and guiding these kids to go do things, it kind of went from being horror to almost kind of a comedy in a way, and then back to the horror. Was that Joss? Who directed? Was that Joss Whedon?
That was Joss Whedon. Yep.
Yeah. So, and that guy, everything that he writes is excellent. So yeah,
all the way up into Justice League.
Yep, that was what I was thinking.
Well, yeah, okay.
Yep.
Everybody
Justice
gets a
League.
bomb once in a while.
Yeah, but I won't go too deep in him. But yeah, I've always liked Joss Whedon stuff. So,
Drew, that reminds me.
You seen it, Nate?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Cool.
Before I actually share my number 2, I should honorable mention, since it's related to Joss Whedon, Buffy the Vampire Slayer has a movie. And if you like 90s movies and 90s nostalgia, that's a pretty entertaining little vampire movie.
It's okay, but if you've seen the TV show, you're not going to like it.
The movie came out first.
I liked it, but I love the TV show, but I did like that movie.
Yeah, basically, we'll just do a quick history on Buffy here. Joss Whedon's movie Buffy was more like the TV show, but the studio heads didn't like it. They needed more comedy. They needed more slapstick and stuff like that. They need Paul Rubens in the movie. So yeah, he reluctantly did Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the movie, and didn't like it. And after a little while, he's finally, can I just do a TV show about it? WB's like, yeah, we've got nothing else on. So sure. And
did the movie do well?
I think it had Luke Perry in it when Luke Perry was popular. It had young Christy Swanson, who was making her way up. Of course, Paul Rubens was in it. A few other notable actors from the late 80s, early 90s. So, it got some traction. I mean, it probably made about 50 million, I would guess, which was decent for early 90s.
It made 16.6 million on a $7 million budget.
Oh, I wasn't even close.
You were
well,
not
it probably
even
made
close.
its money back then.
Barely.
I'm sure
sales,
VHS and DVD, helped back then.
But we got a little bit off track. But there's another horror movie you might check out.
All right, we've had some comedy horrors in here. Now we're gonna get to the actual scary horror.
Yeah, my next 2 are not comedies.
My next one, the premise is a curse is born when someone dies in an extreme rage or sorrow, like a strong emotion, right? You know what I'm talking about? What movie is that?
Say it one more time.
A curse is born when someone dies in extreme rage or sorrow. Okay, I'll give you another hint. You know what I'm doing?
Well, isn't that The Grudge?
Yeah. Okay. So in The Grudge, there's this ghost, and she like
the noise I was trying to make
crawls towards people and goes, because she has no. Well, this is weird. Her jaw is broken. I don't quite understand how that causes that sound to come out. Maybe her larynx
can't
is
enunciate
crushed or something. Yeah, but that movie, man. Okay, I saw that when I was 18 in the theater with some friends, and the opening scene is so, man. I didn't know what I was getting into, but I told you that The Ring was kind of haunting me at that point. And when I went to see The Grudge, I think 5 minutes in or 10 minutes in after the opening, I was like, dude, I want to get out of this theater.
Yeah.
And
I don't
then
think I've ever watched
the
it.
middle has some kind of bad CGI that takes me out of it. And then it gets scary again. I've seen it so many times. I've got the director's cut. I've seen the Japanese versions. And again, it's that whole thing about bringing justice to a wrong situation, right? Someone who experienced an injustice and didn't get justice in this life. Well, this supernatural force is going to come back and try to make the world right, except it doesn't make it right for everyone because it gets revenge, but then it starts the cycle of revenge, and all these people who were innocent who come in contact with the ghost start dying. So that seems to be like some kind of karma justice in Japanese horror movies. But that movie freaked me out. I don't know if it would scare you in 2024 the way it did audiences back then. But I mean, like 5 Grudge movies came out of that. This one is probably the only one worth watching. The second one is just like The Ring 2, has some really scary scenes and a bunch of what the heck's going on.
Yeah, that's the thing with horror movies. They can last forever
Yeah.
because you don't need the same actor in all the movies. You just need some kind of strange creature that comes in and kills people. And
Yeah.
bring in some more people. Let's go to that one. Let's bring in some more. So
There's
'cause
even a
Buffy
Wii
was in
video
the
game.
first one, wasn't she?
Sarah
Buffy
Michelle
was in the-
Gellar.
yeah.
She's in the first one and she's briefly in the second one.
Right.
And this movie is very polarizing. People either are pretty scared by it or they don't think it's scary at all. So it's like one or the other and in extreme. So I'm wondering for you guys, if you've seen it, did you think it was scary or did you think it was just kind of lame?
Ironically, I never watched it. And, like I said, I watched the TV show Buffy. And, I always thought Sarah Michelle Gellar did fine. So I'm not sure why I didn't watch that movie. I think somebody told me that they didn't enjoy it. So that immediately made me think twice about seeing it, I think. And I just never got
Oh
around to doing
man,
it.
I probably told you it was like the scariest thing ever. I mean, she literally like crawls out of a plastic bag, this ghost, and
Nice.
it's you should watch it and let me know what you
Check it
think.
out. I could do that. Drew,
20
you seen
years
it?
later, people are still talking about it.
I don't think I've seen it.
No.
Oh man, don't watch the remake. It is bad. It's real bad.
Well, when you remake a movie that came out 10 years ago, it's usually going to be crap,
Right.
especially if people
Yeah.
like the original one. I mean, we don't need to talk about Ghostbusters again, but that came out 30 years after the original and people hated it. So,
Yeah.
You
when
know,
try to
if they
remake
would
something
just
10 years later, it's like, come on.
if they remade it and they just like improved the CGI parts, because it's weird. I thought for a while that certain parts of the movie, the ghost, or there's 2 ghosts, that they were CGI. Well, I find out no, they are actually actresses or an actress and an actor, and they got this actress, a contortionist, brought in to actually crawl like this. So what you're seeing in that movie is not CGI, they say, but I feel like they must have souped it up a little bit with computers because it does look a little computerized. I don't know why. So I think if they would remake that movie and just do better effects, like you can keep it basically the same and it could be terrifying if done right.
Yeah.
Cute. All right, Drew. Well, we're down to your number 1, right? Or your number 2?
My number 2. So my number 2 is a werewolf movie. And it's Stephen King's Silver Bullet. It was based on
that.
It was based off of his novella Cycle of the Wolf. And in the book, it's every full moon that takes place throughout the year. Obviously, the wolf comes out and does a killing. And the movie kind of picks up with that. There seems to be a lot of like a couple full moons a month during some months, but it pretty much takes place over an entire year up in Maine. And it started, with the first guy. There was an accident on a train tracks. They thought, okay, the guy got, he was drunk on the tracks and got killed. And then more and more started happening. And they realized that there's some kind of a maniac going around. Corey Haim stars in it. Gary Busey is in it. Gary Busey in this movie, when he was playing the role of Uncle Red, they always filmed one take using the scripted lines and one take of him ad-libbing. And they said 75% of his scenes were his ad-lib. He has some pretty good one-liners in this movie. But it just turns out that since you have not seen it, I don't want to spoil it for you, but it is a werewolf movie. And it's interesting who the werewolf is. It's not the person you would expect it to be. And his reasoning for why he commits the murders that he does it makes sense to him of why he's doing it. But obviously he's found out. And I don't know. I saw this movie again. I watched a lot of horror movies when I was young. So I saw this one when I was a kid too, and it's one of those that just sticks with you. So I watch that, every year. I watch Silver Bullet when it's on. So I think that's another one that if you have not seen, I think this is my only issue with this movie is the werewolf doesn't really look like a wolf. He looks like a bear.
Yeah, special effects back in the day, it was tough.
It seriously looks like a grizzly bear. So
Wow.
like I had it on and like my kids were in the room and I said, this is a werewolf movie. And he showed up and my son goes, he looks like a bear. I'm like, I mean, that's a good way to look at it. I mean, if you want to watch it, you're not going to be scared of a werewolf because the dude looks like a grizzly. So, yeah, that's my number 2.
Somebody in the casting department didn't know their animals very well. Is that what you're telling us?
There was something to do with the suit. Like they could not get a suit to look the way that they wanted it to. And they just kind of like, that's what they did. And you don't see it in a lot of shots. A lot of it is shadow. You see a hand, you get close-ups of the eyes or the teeth, but you finally do get to see the full thing like at the end. And it's like, boy, when you put it all together, that just doesn't look good. But oh well.
So true.
Yeah. So
nice classic. Good choice.
Yeah, thank you. All right,
Cool.
Doug, what you got?
Number 2, kind of an underrated one personally. And I think it's, I would say this is probably the best horror movie that's come out in the 2000s. Best one for a while, in my opinion. Underrated one called Sinister.
Yeah.
For a minute there, it was the scientific scariest movie in the world. Because I guess what they do is they seat people down to watch horror movies and they keep their heart rate. And this movie caused the most people to their heart rates to speed up. It changes every year, but yeah, this movie is about a writer, and this writer does true crime novels. And him and his family moved to this small town, because in the small town there was a family that got murdered. And he was going to do some investigating. What he doesn't tell his family when they move in and everything is the house they move into was the exact house that this happened. And throughout the movie, it stars Ethan Hawke. He finds some old film reels and he starts watching them, and he finds out that it wasn't just one family that was killed in this house. It was multiple families over the years. So first thing, what I love about this movie, and of course it doesn't make sense after watching my 5th favorite, but this movie brings out fear, brings out horror with almost zero bloodshed. This
Mhm.
movie is very, there's no gore. It doesn't try to
Almost.
make things doesn't try to make things super scary. And it's like, oh, he's going to chop his arm off or his head off. Or anything. No, this is all supernatural stuff that is very creepy. It's a slower movie. A lot of Ethan Hawke walking around the house in the dark. And it's like, what's happening? And all of a sudden you see something happen over here. And it's like, what? And, it's a very quiet movie. Some good jump scares were, again, very similar to Psycho. It's not like he's walking around. It's like, ba-da-dum! It's literally like, what's going on? What was that? It's like, not that cheesy. It's not the Three Stooges, but it's a very intelligent horror movie that I don't think gets enough credit because it's just so much fun, so dark. You're trying to figure out what's happening, why it's happening. It's a little bit of a mystery too. It isn't like who the killer is, because you don't.
Mhm.
Until the very, very end where they explain what happened. So really good movie, very, very creepy, very dark. But like I said, it's not rip off limbs and cut off heads dark. So just a very intelligent horror movie.
I would say I had one of the biggest jump scares for me when I saw that, because they show the home movies and
Lawnmower.
The lawnmower.
Yep.
That was probably the most I had ever jumped out of my seat.
Now they did throw some noise on that.
Yes.
And I'll throw it out there again. Like I said, he found these film strips of families getting killed in this house, and he's watching one of them. He's kind of distracted. He's doing something else, and he looks back, and it's basically just somebody. It looks like their point of view. They're mowing the lawn in the middle of the night. You see a small flashlight and a lawnmower going, and all of a sudden he looks over, and then you just see somebody laying on the ground, and it goes wee, and it cuts right back to him, and he's like, "Oh God!" But yeah, that was a killer, jump scare. So that was a lot of fun.
Not expecting that.
Yeah. You seen that one, Nathan?
Yes, I saw it in the theater. There was like a second run movie theater in town. Went out of business. Sucks because I got into that for $1.
Yeah,
but
we used to have one of those.
Good old Times Theater in Danville, Illinois.
Yeah.
When I saw that movie, so I'm not going to spoil anything here, but I was really into that movie up until the end at the time, and the end left me, I guess, disappointed. And now that you're talking about the movie again, and I'm thinking about why they wrote it the way they did and the point they were probably trying to make, I'm like, oh, okay, that makes more sense now. Maybe it's not the only way, but it's kind of the way they had to write it. So I don't know. That has me rethinking that movie. Maybe it's worth revisiting.
Absolutely.
It's been a while since I've seen that one, but that one stayed with me for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good one. That one makes you feel creeped out in the middle of the night.
Yes.
If you think about it. You shut off the lights and it's like, okay, I'm going to bed. And it's like, oh crap. Ethan Hawke. Then you're like, oh, get in bed, cover up.
Yeah.
Which if you cover up your head, you're safe from everything.
Always.
Everything.
Yeah, that's what I thought when I was a kid.
Yeah. As long as the covers are over your head, nothing can touch you.
Nothing.
Well, guys, are you ready for the final round? Our number ones. I know you guys didn't all number your lists, but I did, and I know Doug
I kind of did. Yeah.
I kind of. Okay. Yeah. I'm saving
our number
my last
ones are okay. So, before I reveal my number one that just popped in my head, that's a unusual Halloween movie that I think would be fun for the season. It's Underworld. So that's not my choice.
Oh,
that's not my top choice, but vampires and werewolves. Totally different type of take on it.
It's kind of more of an action movie, but I'll give you horror on that.
Yeah,
I'm good with that.
All right, so here's my number one scariest movie I've ever seen. No one has probably seen this on this podcast. It is Shudder, but not the American version. American version's awful. The original Thai version of Shudder is probably the scariest thing I've ever seen. So you got to watch it with subtitles. But I think I've actually seen this movie around before, like maybe Amazon, but originally years ago, I downloaded it, and it's basically The Grudge or The Ring, but with really realistic makeup and effects. And man, that messed me up. And again, it's that same theme as The Grudge and The Ring. It's about a ghost trying to right wrongs, but then, maybe targeting some other people. But man, have you guys ever heard of Shudder?
I've heard
I
of it,
I
yes.
know the American version. I didn't know it was a remake.
Yeah.
Is this
You know,
TTER
this
or
photographer-
DD?
Shudder, TT.
Okay, yeah.
Shudder is the streaming service for horror movies.
That's
But
right.
Shudder, yeah, basically this photographer is going around taking pictures, and he's seeing this little girl, a ghost in the pictures. And that's kind of a horror cliche now, but the way this movie does it, and there's a scene in the dark room that's really disturbing. The end is really, really messed up. The only thing I'd say, like, don't watch it if you are somebody who's gone through some serious trauma, but otherwise, I mean, it is a very scary ghost movie.
Do you have a year for this movie? Because there have been 7 movies called Shudder that has come out since 2004.
It's been 7.
7
Let's see.
movies called Shudder
2004.
since 2004. Yep. That one
Yeah.
looks like it's a Spanish one, or
Yeah, this is the Thai version, the original.
those don't look like Thai names.
If you just type in Shudder Thai version, it'll pop up.
All right, yeah, I'll check that out.
Yeah, I'll show you. Yeah, somebody else start sharing yours, and I'll just in a minute I'll
2004. Okay.
I'll throw a picture up of the of the Thai Shudder movie. It'll freak you out.
Okay, so that the original came out in 2004. That's
Yeah.
what threw me off, though, is like the and yeah, it didn't look like Thai names, but I don't know a lot of Thai names, so maybe it is. Anyway, I have to check out that version.
I've heard of it, but I never. Of course, now that you said there's 7 versions of it, I don't know which one I've heard of.
Yeah, exactly. So right on. All right, I'm gonna check that one out then.
Yep, it'll mess
Very
you up.
All right, Drew.
Okay, so here's my number 1, and
Are we
I want. What's that?
I was gonna guess, but I'm gonna just let you go.
Okay, well, I was going to say this. This is my number 1. And you've noticed that we have not mentioned other films such as like The Exorcist or which we've already covered that one. So I was trying to leave off a few of the movies that we've already discussed somewhere along the lines. But this one is my favorite horror movie. Some people might not think it's the scariest movie ever, but I'll tell you what, it messed with me. Psychologically, I think this one is absolutely terrifying. And it's 1980, The Shining.
Oh yeah.
That movie messed with me so much. First couple times I saw it. It's obviously it's Jack Nicholson and Shelley Duvall going to stay up at the Overlook Hotel in Colorado for the winter, and Jack loses his mind, and it does kind of play with you a little bit on the feeling of being cramped into one spot, what they call cabin fever, when you're in the same spot for so long with the same people. Eventually you might go nuts, or you might get irritated, you might get crazy. Are the ghosts in this hotel possessing him? And it's just watching Jack Nicholson go from being, just a normal everyday guy just trying to write a book to the slow decline mentally, where he's starting to just go crazy. And nobody plays a crazy person better than Jack Nicholson. That dude, and the way he, his facial features, his attitude, the way he starts talking, and it's just so eerie. I think the music for this movie sets the tone. It's not anything big. Whoever wrote it basically just used low sounding brass, and it only played like 3 notes. It would just be real boom, 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 like back and forth, echoing. That's what set it up. Doug used to live in a apartment building that had, you get off the elevator and you turn down the hallway, and it had carpeting that looked like The Shining's carpeting and narrow hallways.
I remember that. Yeah.
And I remember the first time I got off that elevator and stepped down there, I was like, I'm just waiting for 2 little girls to be standing at the end of the hallway. No, that movie, I'll tell you what, the scariest part of that film for me, and what was the bathroom scene, not Jack talking to Delbert Grady. I'm talking when he goes into the room 314 that he's not supposed to be in, and that lady comes out of the bathtub.
Uh-huh.
No, I could not go into a bathroom for the longest time.
That's
in my
the
own
scene?
house. I'd have to check the bathtub. It freaked me out. Like, I was terrified. Again, I saw these movies when I was also little, right? So
Yeah.
I was terrified that there was a rotting corpse in our bathtub that's going to come out and get me. So I don't know. I just think it's very well done. It's so much different than the book. And if you read the book goes into a lot more detail about what's going on. Stanley Kubrick kind of did things his own way, so much that Stephen King actually hates this movie.
Yeah, he likes the TV show better.
Yeah, he made a made-for-TV movie that was more accurate to the book.
Had the Wings guy in it.
Yes, Weber.
Steven
Right?
Weber.
Steven Weber.
Yep.
So then when they came out with the sequel, Dr. Sleep, with Ewan McGregor, who plays a grown-up, Danny, the writers had the task of trying to make this movie sequel. How does it tie into the book? And then also, how does it tie into the Kubrick's 1980 film? Because they're so different. How do we do this? And they had to work with Stephen King to say, like, we want to be true to your book, but we also have to somehow tie it into that movie, because if people have seen the movie and not read the book, they're going to be completely lost when they see this movie. And they did it a very interesting way. They were able to tie it together. So if you had read both books, this makes sense. Or if you had just seen The Shining, this makes sense. And that one I'm going to put on as an honorable mention, because it's got some pretty intense scenes in Dr. Sleep as well. Matter of fact, there's one
That is
scene.
a Mike Flanagan movie too.
Yeah,
The guy who's taken over The Exorcist.
Nice.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it was very well done. There is one scene in Dr. Sleep that I just completely skip. Like, I cannot watch it.
Is it a clown?
No, it's I don't want it. I mean, it's so bad that it's about a 5-minute scene that I just completely I got to skip it. I cannot watch that scene. It's probably one of the most disturbing scenes I've ever seen in a film.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but anyway, The Shining is one of my all-time favorite movies, and yeah, I love it. So that's my number one.
That's a good one.
Thank you.
Right on. Right on.
By the way, following up on mine before we go on to Doug, I just wanted to throw some images up from these 3 ghost movies I mentioned, the Japanese horror. They essentially have the same character with different names. So I'm just going to throw you up these images, and you tell me which movie they're from: The Ring, The Grudge, or Shudder. Okay. Are
Okay.
you ready?
Grudge.
The Ring.
Okay, we got a Grudge and a Ring. It is The Grudge, the first one. Okay. What about this one?
Ugh.
That's the
God.
third one you
Is
mentioned.
that Shudder?
Nope.
That's Ring?
That's the ring.
That's not The Ring
Ringu?
either.
That's The Grudge?
It's the second Grudge.
Oh, you didn't say you were
Yep.
doing that one.
All right. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Okay. Ready?
Oh God. I don't even
Shudder.
Shudder.
Shit,
That's
weird.
Shudder.
Because in Ringu and Ring, they don't show her face, right?
It's all hair.
They
in her.
they do in Ringu. They show her face towards the end.
Oh, okay.
All right.
And
I
I
got
think they
two
show her
more.
face in that too, in the
Are
remake.
you ready?
No. That's a
Ring.
Ring.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. One more.
That was my favorite picture because I didn't
Ring Part 2. Grudge
I'm
Part
going
4.
Grudge 4. Shudder 5.
Shudder, the Thai one, the original.
Oh, okay.
So you're gonna have nightmares.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Which one was the scariest?
The second one, I think.
The one coming up in the
Grudge 2?
bed.
This one?
I didn't like that one. Actually, you're right. You might be right. It might be that one when she's
The
coming
one
up on
with
the bed.
Crawling up on the bed. One from
That-
Shudder.
Yeah, yeah.
See that and that. Oh gosh, that.
That one just
Whoa.
looks like some girl going to a Halloween costume or party or
Well,
something. It's like, "Oh, I'm going
the,
to take
the
a picture with her."
freakiest part, like the two freakiest parts of the movie, I didn't show because I don't want to spoil it. But I think The Grudge 2 tried to, like, one of its best scenes. It pulled from Shudder. It basically tried to recreate a scene from Shudder. I'm surprised it didn't get sued over it. There must be some kind of deal, that they could share the idea. All right. That means Doug, you're the last one up, right? You're gonna
I think so.
reveal our final great movie.
Well, I need some help with this because, first of all, my favorite horror movie of all time is The Exorcist, which we have talked about plenty in the past. If you want to hear our thoughts on The Exorcist, check our archives. We've talked at least once, I think twice, about it.
We've covered all 6 movies,
Yeah, we've done all The
and
Exorcist.
the first one twice.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And so I would say Exorcist Part 3 is my favorite, my second favorite, but we've already done those. So I went with something kind of like what Drew did, where it was like something that got me as a younger kid. And in 1988, a remake of a movie came out that this movie and the original that came out in the, I believe, 50s, they're not super, super scary. But at the time I watched this, I was about 13 at the time. It was the thought of something like that happening that really bugged me for a good probably 6 months. And that movie is The Blob. Now, I saw the 1988 version first, and I fell in love with it because it does star Shawnee Smith, who I had a big crush on in the 80s and 90s. You know her from Saw, Summer School, about 50 other 80s movies. She was just that character that showed up all the time. And it stars a young Johnny Drama too, Kevin Dillon. So yeah, that movie was cool, but the remake with Steve McQueen, I can't remember. There was a big name actor in the first one. Blanking on it right now, but that was the same. And what bugged me about that was Blob can show up anywhere. Yeah, it moves slow and it just, but it can go into the sewer system and come up when you're going to the bathroom or come out when you're taking a shower. And I remember watching this movie and then, going and showering, and I would like try to keep an eye on the drain half the time because it's just like I knew this was. I mean, I was 13 years old. I should have been, a little bit more mature and been like, it's just a movie or whatever. But this movie
Oh,
did
no,
something
I
to
get
me.
it.
That movie did something to me where for a solid 6 months, I had issues going to the bathroom. I had issues showering, like,
You're like constipated chronically or
well,
something.
when you're sitting there, you can't see what's going on. What's
Oh,
crawling
I
up?
know.
Yeah. Scared the crap out of me. It's like I'd get in the car and I'd be like checking under the seats. And it's like, if I feel anything, I'm running. It's like, I know this isn't real, but it hit me hard. And so, yeah, I was, that movie had a big effect on me in a small amount of time. Because I think after that, I was like, yeah, I was stupid. Thinking about a Blob, but I still enjoy watching it today. The remake and the
I have not
original.
seen
They're
that.
just
I haven't
Which
seen
one
it
is
either.
this?
Is
Is this from the original?
that's the remake.
Yeah.
That's the remake.
Oh.
That came out in '88.
Yeah. The original
Okay.
did have Steve McQueen in his first movie role, his first starring role. So
Yeah, he was
I've
like
seen-
42 playing a high school kid.
Yeah, I've seen parts of that one. I have not seen the remake.
But I actually follow. I can't remember the name of the theater from the first one, but there's the theater that they shot at. It's somewhere in the Northeast, and every year they have a BlobCon, and the entire town has a bunch of cool things happening. You can go watch the movie, and then after the movie ends, you're supposed to run out screaming like what happened in the movie. So when the movie ends, you'll see a bunch of people standing outside with cameras, or not cameras. No one uses cameras anymore, phones and stuff like that. And they're just videotaping and taking pictures of people running out scared. You're just supposed to have some fun with it. They have a costume contest. They have a chili cook-off. They have a bunch of stuff happening every year. It's almost like Groundhog's Day.
Dude, that's awesome.
It's the Colonial Theater.
Colonial Theater. That's
in
it. Yep.
Phoenixville, Pennsylvania.
So, so yeah, I that's something I've always wanted to do. I wanted to go and go to the Colonial Theater and spend a week in there and do something like that. Something we'll do someday. We'll make a road trip out of it. Might be a good podcast video.
Could be.
Yeah.
Where is
That would be
Phoenixville,
fun.
Pennsylvania at? It's just outside Philadelphia, it looks like.
Okay.
So
I
I'm
mean, we went
down for that.
Went to Punxsutawney. Might as well go
Let's
with
keep going.
Colonial Theater too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's not the scariest movie, and as I watch it as an adult, it's like I know what's going to happen, and it's fun. But that movie, I have fun with it, but it truly affected me as a kid. So
I
wanted
get
to
that.
throw that in there.
The Grudge and Psycho made me afraid of showers, and something that happened in real life made me afraid of, like, you said you're afraid to like go to the bathroom. Well, I was too, because of like a boa constrictor or something escaped from the zoo, and I was always afraid it was going to come up through the toilet, because it came up through someone's toilet and they like reenacted it on the news
God.
or on 48 Hours or something. Man, every time it's like you're sitting there like looking in the toilet, like trying to make sure there's not a snake in there.
fixing that. Oh no, that was me.
You definitely wouldn't like Ghoulies then.
Ghoulies.
Man, I don't think I've seen that all the way through.
Love
But
it.
they come out through the toilet too.
Oh, I don't watch that. Yeah. Now, you guys had a good list. I had a few honorable mentions. I accidentally closed my list of them. I think if you're looking for something that is scary, but yet like good wins, you're kind of looking for some closure. Watch the Insidious series or Conjuring, because those have good atmosphere, but typically like good wins at the end, and they're a little more family themed, even with the creepy scares. And I like those because they've got a lot of interesting spiritual and religious overtones to them. So those are kind of cool. The best ones, I think, are The Conjuring and maybe Annabelle Creation and what's the other one I just Insidious
The Nun.
1 and 3.
Nun
Yeah,
was-
the Nun's not bad.
That's part of the Conjuring.
Those are all
series.
pretty good.
Mhm.
There's a movie that not that many people remember. M. Night Shyamalan produced this movie, I believe, but didn't direct. It's called Devil, where they're all trapped
He
in an
directed that.
elevator for a long time.
He directed
And
that.
oh, he did.
Yep.
That's a pretty interesting movie. I liked that.
I
It's
enjoyed that.
unusual.
It kind of brought him back, I felt. You know,
Mhm.
because he had that kind of downtime. He did the Avatar movie, not the blue people, but the people that can throw wind or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he had a couple, you know, The Happening that wasn't huge and stuff like that. But then when
Oh,
Devil
that
came
one
out, it was
hard
like,
to
ooh,
watch. Yeah,
this is,
Devil was good.
it's kind of fun.
Um,
I
yeah.
always had fun with found footage movies. You know, the Blair Witch
Paranormal
did it
Activity.
first, but I really liked Paranormal Activity. That
First one was really good.
yeah, the first one made me jump. The second one was decent too.
Mhm.
I don't think I've seen any past then. But well, Drew and I went to see the third one in the theater.
Yeah.
with
And
your
I saw
wife.
the second one with
I
you
missed
in the
that.
theater.
I don't remember that one that much. But
It wasn't much to remember.
yeah. But yeah, I always had fun with those. Even like the what was the Cloverfield? You know, it's not much of a horror movie. It's just a monster movie, or you know, a big creature
That was
attack
fun.
alien movie. But yeah, that I had fun with those. Where it's like if you do those found footage films well, they're fun. But yeah, I love horror movies, but I love horror movies that have fun and joke around too. Like, of course, Shaun of the Dead.
Oh, it's a fantastic one.
Just I can
So
watch. I
funny.
watch that at least twice a year.
Yeah.
Going old school, Monster Squad.
Monster
You
Squad's
know
a
what
good
an
one.
absurd movie. You know, the freaking army shows up at the end of the movie because some 4-year-old wrote, "Dear Army people, we need help" in crayon. They actually showed up.
The movie's
like,
just
what?
yeah. It's
You
absurd.
know, yeah,
My-
but so
I
good.
got one that's kind of like that. My honorable mention. It has fun with itself, but at the same time is kind of terrifying in some ways, and that's American Werewolf in London.
Mhm. Another
It's
funny
it's
one. That,
it was one of those where they didn't know how to market this movie. It was too scary to be a comedy, but it was too funny to be a horror movie. So they didn't know what to do with it. And but it is another one of those that kind of has fun with itself. You know, they make some, you know, his dead friend keeps showing up and is
Mhm.
more and more rotted every time he sees him. But some of the scenes when he's actually the wolf are pretty creepy. The dude in the subway being stalked is very uncomfortable. But the first time when they're out on the moors walking and you can hear the wolf out in the distance and they
Mhm.
don't know where it's coming from, the sound
creepy.
that it's making is absolutely one of the most terrifying things in a movie. It was just, you know, it's out
Especially
there,
for
but
the
you don't
early
know
80s,
where it
yeah.
is. Yeah. And the sound it's making, it's like you don't know where it is and what's going to happen. So American Werewolf in London is a very interesting, and it's got that real famous you know, transformation scene
Mhm.
played through Bad Moon Rising by CCR while he's doing it. So
Yeah, random choice of songs there. I like that.
or actually it wasn't Bad Moon Rising, it was Moon Dance by Van Morrison. That's what they're
Yeah, they
playing
all
while
sounded the
he's-
same back then.
So that's one of my honorable mentions there. I'd also throw out the old Amityville Horror, the original.
I'm gonna
Thanos' dad.
Huh?
Thanos' dad was in that,
Yes, Thanos' dad was in that movie.
right? Was it him?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I
I'm
started
gonna
thinking
throw out
twice.
one I
and-
watched
Yeah.
this year. I'm gonna throw one out that we thought about covering, but we didn't. It's Nefarious. It's more of your
I didn't
investigative
watch that. Yeah.
demon-related movie, but
I
it's
remember
not a
talking
ghost
about that.
movie. But I thought that was really psychologically interesting, and I have noticed like my tastes have changed a little bit as I've gotten older, and I don't know if it's just like life experience, but I used to watch scary movies, to get scared. And I always noticed I didn't like the ones that just had a depressing ending. So
Yeah.
I've always kind of felt that way. But now I more like the ones that have, I guess, a happy ending per se. Like I want to take a look at, what is out there. You want to think about, you want to know how bad, like if you're thinking about this from a spiritual level, and you believe in God, then every once in a while you want to take a look at the other side to see what you're against and why you actually believe what you believe. So I think it's interesting to look at stuff like The Exorcist and Conjuring, but I like it when that's resolved at the end, now. Rather than leave me unsettled. It's like, oh, I did not really want to stress about going to sleep tonight, that type of thing.
Yeah. And real quick, if there are any people who make lists like this, scariest horror movies of all time, please stop putting Rosemary's Baby in the top 10 or on the
I've
list
never seen it
at all. It is, I'm sorry if people out there love this movie. I don't get it. Is it Sissy?
No,
Sissy
No,
Spacek?
that was
Sissy
Carrie.
Spacek was in Carrie,
Carrie.
which that one
Mia
is
Farrow.
Mia Farrow. Yeah,
Yeah, Mia Farrow. All it is her walking around this beautiful house crying for an hour and a half, and then she has a baby, and then there's a bunch of old people in the kitchen drinking wine, going, "Hail Satan!"
It's like The Omen,
And that's how
right?
it ends. Yeah,
Yeah.
basically, she's giving birth to the Antichrist. There's a
Yeah,
couple.
I don't like The
There's some
Omen either.
weird scenes that.
well,
Well,
it's
The Omen.
Roman Polanski for one, and he was kind of an oddball anyway.
Yeah. I mean, The Omen was slow, but it was 70s. So it was just watching it, you're creeped out because it's like, I don't like this time period. This is weird.
I don't like 70s
But-
movies.
right. But yeah, I don't understand Rosemary's Baby. But if somebody loves it, comment why. I have no problem trying to watch it again, but I watched it maybe about 10 years ago. I tried it again, and it's just, why is that movie scary to people? I understand back in the 60s, dealing with demons and the Antichrist and this young woman who's giving birth to, the ender of our world and everything. I can understand that's creepy because back in 68, 69, when that came out, there wasn't a lot of real scary horror movies, but I just don't get it.
Don't get it. I don't think I've seen it. I know what it is, but I've never
Yeah.
seen it.
I mean, you should watch it just because it is, one of the greatest horror movies ever. That's why I watched it. And I was just like, what the heck is going on here? Because there's nothing happening.
That's how I felt about the first Omen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I can
watched
understand that. It's just kind of people fall out of windows. But yeah, I would, I'll agree with you on that. I'm not a big fan of The Omen either, but the way they shot it was just creepy throughout the whole film. Where, yeah, Rosemary's Baby, like I said, it's just Mia Farrow walking around crying. There's nothing scary about that. Sorry.
Yeah, skip that one. I've heard that
Oh.
too.
Yeah, they
So-
filmed it in the Dakota apartment building. It's where John Lennon lived.
Oh,
He
really?
was sadly assassinated. Yeah, that's
Did
where
not
they
know that.
filmed it.
Good trivia.
Oh, there's a movie that I watched last year that I thought was really scary, but it had one of those depressing endings that I hated, and it was The Empty Man. And it's pretty freaky, but like the end, I hated it so much that I'm like, I wish I hadn't watched that,
Oh, yeah.
because there is something very unsettling about it. But what's the movie we saw 2 years ago that we covered right before we started doing YouTube, back when we were just a podcast?
Is that the one where the lady lived by the lake and there was the second house across the lake?
Yeah.
What was that?
What was that movie? Because that was good.
I wasn't
that-
bad.
That was
lady.
thoughtful for a number of. It was scary.
What was
they
that movie
were
called?
very creative with the camera.
It was supposed to come out during the pandemic and it didn't.
Yeah.
So it didn't get the advertising. It didn't get out there the way it should have. And yeah, it was a well done movie, an interesting story, something different. And yeah, not a lot of people saw it because it came out on Amazon.
Yeah. It was really creepy, but it had some pretty deep spiritual themes too.
Yeah, there wasn't any big name actors in it, so you can't look up the name of the person.
Yeah, we're gonna dig up the name in a second. Drew, do you have it? Are you looking?
I'm
for it?
looking, but I can't go back that far for some reason.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's only-
Well, we didn't make a video of it, did we?
No, but it's on. We may have posted a clip. All right, hang with us for just a second.
Well, I'm gonna keep just naming movies.
I can't remember what that.
I'm trying to
was.
remember. Did you ever see?
What are you looking on? I'm gonna have it in.
Did any of you see Sleepaway Camp?
No.
Yeah, that was kind of disturbing.
That was weird. That
The
was an
ending of
80s
that
movie
was-
that felt like it was shot in the 70s. And I'll go full spoiler alert on this one. I'm going to tell you because what makes it basically the movie starts off with a dad, brother, and sister on a speedboat,
Yeah.
and it crashes. And then it cuts to like 10 years later or 5 years later or whatever. And the daughter who survived goes to a camp. And, you know, of course, that camp, there's bullies and there's people and all this stuff happening. And all the bad people keep getting killed. And you find out that it's this girl who's doing it. But the very last scene of the movie is her standing there naked with this weird face. And it zooms out and you see some junk. She was never the girl. It was the brother that survived at the beginning.
And the parents
But
made him be the daughter because that's who
well,
they
yeah, I
want.
think no, the parents were dead too. I don't, they didn't really say why,
He was.
if I remember, but yeah,
Yeah.
that was a weird one, but
It's got a
it was
weird scream going on while she's doing it too.
yeah.
It was like, ugh.
So that was
Oh
kinda-
man, I got the name of that movie, and
Oh, yeah?
it would have been high on my list had I remembered it. I would have put the first Exorcist, and I almost put the third Exorcist on my list too. But I assumed Doug was going to pick them, so none of us did. But
we
like,
and
those
we've
are
already done them.
really, really thought provoking. And the third one has your jump scares in it and your scary movie stuff. The first one has your this is disturbing and deep spiritual themes. But the movie that we covered 2 years ago, just a random find on Netflix for me, The Night House.
Yes, the Night
Man.
House.
That movie is good, and what they do with the camera in certain parts is like psychological horror, where they make you see things that aren't there just by where they place the camera to make it look like a person. And it's a really interesting movie with some spiritual themes too.
Yeah.
So
that was pretty cool.
I would have put that top 2 or 3 in my list.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That was a good movie. But I don't know any others. I mean, I could sit here and
I'm
talk
running out.
I can
horror
do this all
movies
night.
forever.
Yeah,
Yeah. But
Probably the most
yeah, that's-
unsettling one I've seen is Hellraiser. I kind of regretted watching that.
that was
one
another one
afterward.
of those. Yeah, the first one was like, oh, that was weird and kind of creepy, and then they moved on and made 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and yeah, it was getting kind of crazy there for a while. And I never really understood what that ball was. I saw all these as a kid, so I never watched them as an adult. I have no idea.
I don't
That
think I know either.
and
Phantasm.
Pinhead.
That's Hellraiser.
Yeah, Pinhead's Hellraiser.
You're thinking of Phantasm.
Phantasm. That's
The guy
what I'm
with the
thinking.
old man with
Yeah.
the ball.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the ball.
I've seen that.
Sorry,
I've seen
yeah.
that.
That's what
Yeah.
I was thinking of. Sorry. But yeah, I saw that as a kid as well as Hellraisers, and they were just like, okay. But the
Yeah,
scariest thing
that
ever.
one was weird. The first half, I was like, yes, like it's like so 80s, and I love that hilarious like makeup, like practical gore is so funny to me. Like there's something lovable about the face melting scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark, right?
Right.
There's something like awesome and cartoony about that. I don't know why. And that's what the first half of Hellraiser was for me. And then the last half, I just felt like disturbed. so,
Right.
so I don't know. I probably wouldn't recommend that one, but some people might like it. I don't know.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, there's plenty of.
But I'm
Scariest thing
sure.
out there
Mhm.
is the alien Muppets from Sesame Street.
Yep.
Don't
know,
like it.
My son
Don't
is
like
watching
it.
Sesame Street now, and I thought it was hilarious to see that Sesame Street spoofed Stranger Things
Yeah, they
and
spoofed a lot of
Walking Dead.
The Walking Dead
It
with the
was pretty
cookies.
funny.
I've seen that
Walking
one.
Gingerbread Men,
The
yeah,
Walking
I just saw
Gingerbread
it like
Man.
2 days ago, and it made me chuckle.
Yeah, it was Cookie Monsters is like he's the sheriff, and then you had it wasn't Michonne. I can't remember what the name. Macaron was her name because they're all named after cookies.
Oh yeah.
She was
Yeah.
Macaron, and she had spatulas instead of katanas.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, I was like, that's really interesting.
It was pretty funny.
Yeah.
It was like they were throwing the adults a bone there.
They were. I remember having it on when Cece was little, and we were watching it, and they did the Walking Gingerbread Men. I'm like, wow, this is cool.
I very much enjoyed Stranger Things season 1 too. So it was cool to see
I've enjoyed
that
all the
on
seasons
Sesame Street.
of Stranger Things. That's a good horror anthology.
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
not
it's really
anthology,
good.
but kind of TV show or miniseries, however you want to take it.
Mhm.
There's some creepy stuff in that.
Yeah.
The Exorcist TV show, I enjoyed that one.
I have not seen that yet. Maybe I should.
So there's 2 seasons. The second season has nothing to do with the first season. It's kind of like they tell different stories every season. But yeah, the first one is kind of a what happens 30 years later after the original Exorcist. And again, I don't want to go too much into spoilers, but it was decent. It was better than I expected. It has Gina Davis in it. Might have Cameron from Ferris Bueller's Day Off in it as well. I think he was in it.
Is it better than Believer?
Yeah. Birdemic's better than Believer. Birdemic, that's another scary movie.
Is it now?
No. Well, it's scary
Scarily bad.
if you're scared of bad acting,
And bad CGI,
bad
plot,
everything,
bad driving, bad walking,
bad walking,
bad
Bad
talking.
life.
bad song,
What? Hanging with my family?
hanging with my family. He's talking about hooking up with his family in that song.
So stupid.
It's not good.
It is so stupid.
So much fun.
Well, guys, I
think we'll
hope
get
we
there.
gave our listeners some scary movies to check out. So yeah, tell us what did we miss and what were your favorites from our list?
Yeah.
And
Not
Yeah,
to
everyone
say-
write down their top 5 horror movies. Just when you watch this, comment your top 5 horror movies. We're just curious
Yeah.
to see, there might be one you mentioned that we haven't seen, like, a couple of the ones Nathan mentioned. I've seen Ring, but I haven't seen Ringu. I've seen The Grudge. I haven't seen the Grudge-u or whatever it's called.
yeah, viewers, I gotta reboot my whole list now. Just go watch Night House. That's all it is. That's
Watch
my
Night
list.
House. Yeah, and obviously we
yeah.
didn't mention Halloween because
I love the first one.
I love the first couple Halloweens, and Friday the 13th is one of my biggest ones, but we were doing stuff on that already. So some of the stuff we left out intentionally, but there's so many. I could just keep going.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I love the original Universal horror films with the Wolfman, Dracula, and Frankenstein from the
Oh, yeah.
30s.
Mm.
I think those are great.
Bela Lugosi.
Yeah, Boris Karloff and Lon Chaney.
Well, we are going to start covering the Daredevil Netflix series soon because Born Again is coming up. So I know it's not horror, but if you're into Daredevil, keep an eye on our channel. Maybe start watching the first season again because we're gonna go
We're gonna
through
catch
it
you
and
up.
talk about it weekly. So,
Yep. Yep, going to change the channel up just a little bit until Daredevil ends. So, we'll probably be talking Daredevil now through next spring.
Yep.
Might throw in a Christmas movie or, holiday movie here and there, but yeah, going to try
all
something new.
right.
So, Daredevil fans, stand fast. We'll be back with that.
All right. We'll see you guys soon.
All right. We'll see
Good
you.
night, y'all.